2 years ago, real estate agent and teacher Jordan Pace ran for South Carolina House District 117. And 2 years later, he's running once again on issues he thinks is affecting the district. I sit down exclusively with Jordan for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and download my free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Jordan Pace, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
It's great to be back.
Thank you greatly. Obviously, I interviewed you for Quintin's Close-Ups, I believe 2 years ago. And you wrote a Facebook post just recently on September 24th. You said this quote, whether it was helping to fight off local tax hikes or holding corrupt legislators accountable, my faith in biblical...
It's a mouthful. Yeah.
I like the part of fighting against these corrupt politicians. I like that part. Can't say it on camera. That's why I do interviews.
That's right.
Jordan Pace, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thanks for having me back.
You're welcome. Obviously, I had you on Quintin's Close-Ups many years ago to discuss your run for South Carolina House District 117. And on September 24th, you wrote the following on your Facebook page. You said this quote, whether it was helping fight off local tax hikes or holding corrupt legislators accountable, my faith in biblical principles has been my guiding compass in everything I do. I know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck. I worried about loved ones getting sick, going to the doctor, and being saddled with a bill they can't afford. And like you, I'm concerned about where radical socialists want to take our country and state. That's why I'm announcing my candidacy for South Carolina House District 117. Tell me, why Jordan Pace? Why South Carolina House 17 once again?
Well, the election turned out kind of as a surprise in November of 2018.
Right.
For the first time since 1976, a Democrat won that seat. And it was a surprise to everybody. I think even the current incumbent thought it was kind of a surprise to her too, would be my guess. So considering that, I haven't met the incumbent, but I've read some of her speeches. I've heard about some of the bills she's co-sponsored and her ideas, and I don't think they're a good fit for the district. I think last time was kind of a fluke, considering it kind of rode along with the congressional race with first district, first district congressional race. To combine that with the former incumbent that I ran against the primary, I don't think he thought it recognized as a threat because he didn't spend any money on the actual general election, didn't really campaign, and those two things together turned out, that's how the Democrat won. As far as why I want to run in this district, I think the district is a pretty conservative district. I mean, it's voted for a Republican president since Jimmy Carter,
right?
All through the Reagan and Clinton years. Right. So I think it's right to go back to the conservative side.
From the 1970s to right now, how do you look at South Carolina House District 117?
Has it changed?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I've got 2 full-time jobs. I stay pretty busy. I teach high school and real estate.
Right.
I've been doing the real estate thing longer than teaching high school. So most of my business has actually been in the district or close to it in Goose Creek.
Right.
So I've definitely seen a lot of growth, a lot of new folks coming in. And the biggest thing, I don't think it's an ideological thing, the new folks coming in. I think it's just an unfamiliarity with the politicians that have been in office and kind of the families that have historically run the area since the 1970s.
Right.
These new folks move in, they maybe start to recognize, maybe things ain't what they're supposed to be. A lot of folks move in from northern states, the taxes are really high. They get sold on this idea that South Carolina is a low tax state. Then they get here and have to pay taxes and realize maybe it's not quite as low tax as they thought it was. And justifiably, they turn their sights on incumbents. So they should look to that either have been there for, South Carolina. A lot of times politicians get in office and stay in office for generations. So I think they're trying to recognize that. So I think what happened last time is they said, well, this person's the incumbent. things aren't what it's supposed to be, stress somebody else. Not really knowing who that somebody else was. It was just an other, not incumbent. So there's a good aspect to that. I think it's a necessary aspect. But I don't think we've seen an ideological shift, especially in 117. Maybe a little bit in the downtown Charleston area, but I used to work down here. Never lived down here, but I could see that maybe in the downtown James Island, West Ashland. But up in Goose Creek, North Charleston, I don't think we've seen an ideological shift, even with the new folks moving out.
Moving in. Let me go off topic, but be relevant with what you talked about as far as growth. How do you define smart growth?
Smart growth to me means market growth. So primarily it's, usually when people say infrastructure growth, their main concern is roads, because we sit in traffic for however long we need, longer and longer periods of time. So start with roads.
Okay.
South Carolina's biggest road problem is that it's centralized. The state of South Carolina, SCDOT, is responsible for the fourth most amount of roads of any state in the entire country. So we're talking California, Texas, Florida, and versus little old South Carolina, us. That doesn't make any sense at all. Now, I know from a market background, the closer to the issue, whether it's the county or city or whatever, they can do it more efficiently than the state or the federal government can do something, just on principle. And we've seen that bear out in SADOT reports per mile cost. All but 2 counties repave and repair roads cheaper and faster than SCDOT. So why is it the way it is? The legislators in Columbia, historically, leadership in the legislature, have wanted to centralize that DOT spending. They want to control the roads and where the roads get paved and fixed and everything else, because that means they get power. They can use that to hold over other legislators to get their vote. It's a means of power. So I think that structurally is what's keeping us behind and keeping roads from getting fixed. We just saw a report out of the Policy Council this week about how they raised taxes 3 or 4 times now on the gas tax since they implemented that, and they're not spending on fixing roads.
It's a basic question, but if you were in the South Carolina House of Representatives many years ago when they voted for the gas tax, how would you have voted?
Without question, no. Here, and it's not a lack of money. The state has had a budget surplus every year since 2009. I would say 2000. It was 2010. I think we had the first budget surplus. This year it's almost $1 billion.
Okay.
So it's not a lack of money. It's a lack of spending the money where it's supposed to go. Hugh Leatherman still leads the Senate. He's no longer officially the president of the Senate. The man still runs the Senate. Leads the finance, the budget writing committee, finance committee in the Senate. He owns 49% of Florence Concrete, which has made like $40 million in DOT contracts in the last 10 years. Florence has 9 roads. So when you have that kind of association, his son-in-law, John Hardy, just got sent to jail, pled guilty to some stuff, to the feds. He got put on the DOT board unopposed because he was loving his son-in-law. And it's that kind of nepotism and corruption. That's what's holding us back. What we should have done, and there was a proposal to this that got shot down, rather than raise the gas tax, restructure who fixes the roads. The counties are to get something called C funds, so block grants basically from current taxes. The state says, here's this chunk of money, you guys fix these roads. Whatever roads need to get fixed, here you go. And all but 2 counties, like I said, have proven that they can do it better and cheaper and faster than the state.
If C funds were to be implemented, how much money would you want to come back to House District 117?
Exact numbers, I don't know. And here's why we don't know. 4 or 5 years ago, the DOT internal, IG, internal investigations guy, auditor, he put together, he audited the whole DOT, was preparing to bring that audit to the House Oversight Committee. And a few days before the House Oversight Committee met, he was brought in before the DOT Commission, and they said, they basically told them, we're changing your job description, so you do not answer to the House Oversight Committee, you answer to us. You have to give us this audit, and we'll decide whether or not the House Oversight Committee gets the audit. Well, guess who didn't get the audit? The House Oversight Committee. So we don't know what needs to go where, because no one's ever seen that audit outside the DOT Commission. Still.
Let me get back to the gas tax. In your mind, was that legal?
Was it legal? Probably. I mean, I think it might still be in courts. There was a lawsuit brought against it. I don't know what happened to that lawsuit. So it's yet to be seen, I think, whether or not it's explicitly legal. The way that they did it was certainly underhanded. Just calling it a fee when it was in fact a tax. It was not a road user fee. A fee is something you pay like once a year. And then you go to, it's a road, Spartanburg County has a road fee. It's like, it used to be $25, now I think it's up to $50. But it's a once a year thing, not a transactional thing where you go to the pump. That's a sales tax. We all know what a sales tax is. So whether it's legal, I don't know. Was it underhanded? Yeah. And I think it was unnecessary.
If you could, let me ask you this first. What report card would you give the Department of Transportation right now if you could?
Now the DOT itself, like the actual guys and gals who run the DOT, generally do a great job. When they go do their projects, they do a good job at it. Secretary Hall is not bad at her job. The problem is who is actually in charge of DOT. She has limited authority. The governor has very limited authority. It's the DOT Commission, which is essentially still appointed by legislative leadership, whether it's partly Speaker of the House, partly Senator Leatherman, and now Senator Grooms is transportation, he gets one. So regardless of who's in charge, it's not a personality issue either. It's a structural problem. Because if I have a pothole in my street, even if I'm, if I know who my state representative is, I call them, unless they're on the DOT selection committee, that's unofficial, one of these chairmen. They don't really have much of a say in anything. I mean, as a single state representative, they have one vote. What would be better, what most states do, is they put the governor directly in charge of appointing the DOT. If they have a commission, the commissioners, with Senate approval,
Right.
But they also put the governor in charge of the secretary, make it a cabinet level agency. So if the secretary does not do their job, if the roads aren't getting fixed, we all know who's to be held accountable for that. It's the governor. At this point, who do you hold accountable? I guess maybe Leatherman, maybe Senator Grooms, but if you don't live in their district, you're out of luck. The best you can hope for is put pressure on your legislator who may or may not have any influence to do something about those two guys. So it's not even a personality thing, it's just a structural problem.
Structural problem. What other structural problems does the Department of Transportation have right now that we don't know about?
We don't know. Because of that audit. No one's seen it. Not even the House Oversight Committee has seen it.
Right. You talked about those legislators, and I don't know, this was posted just recently on your Facebook page. You said this quote, PSA, South Carolina's legislative reconvenes in Columbia today. Keep an eye on your wallets.
Yeah, mine's it's right here. I can get a hand on it. Anytime government's in session, I'm trying to remember who said this. It might be Mark Twain. The most dangerous time for anybody's wealth is when Congress was meeting. I think it was Twain that said that. Anytime the legislature's in session, they're hammered. Generally, their solution to things is, we need more money. No matter who it is that's in power, unless we have legislators who go up there specifically with the mindset of people know how to spend their money better than the government does, which we're starting to get a few more. I'm very encouraged in the last year or two, especially on the House side. We've started sending legislators out there with that mindset that the people actually know how to spend their money better than the government does to fight that. But I mean, the states, they raise the gas tax. There's talk about restructuring the income tax, which we don't need to restructure it. And maybe it either needs to be eliminated or just cut significantly. Georgia's is lower than ours. North Carolina's is lower than ours. Florida has 0. Texas and Tennessee have 0. We need to be competitive there. We're not. But some of the changes they're kicking around about changing that would increase the sales tax on things like groceries and pharmaceuticals and things that would hurt lower income folks, rather than just cutting. We have a surplus. So that's kind of what I mean by that. I'm just kind of tongue in cheek, being a little bit funny, but also kind of serious.
Serious. But let me be serious here with the part you said about keeping an eye on the wallets.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you focused on when it comes to the money that's coming from the South Carolina State House right now?
Yeah. So the priorities for the state, obviously infrastructure is a big one. We've told our collectively, we said we need the roads fixed. First priority there should be getting them fixed, not expanding. So expanding is necessary in some places, and that's what the experts are for. That's for those engineers, those folks who do the audits that we need to see. There's a priority list today. I mean, right now you can look it up. The DOT has a priority list, but the commission doesn't have to follow the priority list. Secretary Hall does, but the DOT commission can go in and just move things around. And there's no accountability. So infrastructure is one. Education is certainly a big issue. The solutions, I don't think anybody other than maybe a few senators seem to be happy with the current omnibus bill that they've transformed that House bill into the Senate. I think Senate 419. I've yet to see very many people that are like, yeah, this is a great idea, it's a great bill. Music is huge. Anytime omnibus is associated with a piece of legislation, that's a huge red flag for me. You're trying to lump in different pieces together that don't necessarily have to go together. To me, it makes more sense. Let's just pass one thing at a time.
What should they pass first when it comes to education right
now? From the state level?
Yes, sir.
It's not a funding issue. Charleston County spends almost $20,000 per student per year, which is an astronomical amount of money. Berkeley County, I think, is around 15. Dorchester's 15 or 16. DD2. I'm not sure what DD4 is. They spend a lot of money. I think First Baptist school down here is $12,000 a year.
Okay.
To go to First Baptist, and so it's not a money issue. The state, and here's the reality of it: the state can't fix the problems we have in education. They can help, they can equip, but fundamentally, the problems we have in education is on a family and parent level. It's on a community level. So the state can't reach down and fix that. It's got to be something that starts on the ground level, on a grassroots level, and comes up. Those solutions need to come from churches, from families, from community organizations, not from the state. From the biblical perspective, that first quote talking about the biblical perspective, the Bible describes the government as the executor of justice. I mean, it's the sword. That's the analogy that he uses over and over again in the New Testament. Right? That the government's a sword. We don't do surgery with a sword. Swords make bad scalpels. So they're using the government as a means to fixing very delicate issues, whether it's in the families or the communities or in education, is dangerous. So I don't think it needs to be more money. Certainly teachers arguably could be paid more. I mean, I'm a teacher, I know that. But that's got to be on a district, county level, local level. Those kind of decisions should be made locally. I think parents need a lot more power, empowerment on where they send their kids. Now, I don't know if that means backpacking or there's a lot of buzzwords that go with it. Broadly, I think parents and families need a lot more authority on where to send their kids. And that means a lot more flexibility on where that funding goes. And that freaks people out, I know.
And I want to get back to the income tax. Obviously, you talked about proposals they might, bring up if they were to happen. If they change the income tax in South Carolina, how much money would that save the state in your mind?
It depends what do you mean about what do you mean how they change it?
As far as cutting the income tax, how much would that save?
Well, there's several income taxes. There's the personal income tax, which is if you make more than $14,500 a year, you pay 7%. If your income's that after federal taxes, which is most of the state. I mean, you can be in pretty desperate poverty and still make more than $14,500 a year. That hasn't changed since 1975. So certainly those brackets need to be adjusted. But that 7% is super high. North Carolina's, I think, is 5.5, 5.4. Georgia's 5. Alabama's 5. Florida's 0. So lowering that puts more money in our pockets to do with what we need to do with feed our families, put in savings, educate our children, whatever. We also have a personal business property tax. Now, this is the one that most people don't know about unless they own a small business.
Right.
And it kicks people's butts. I know several people that have moved here to start a business, and they get a bill along with all their other, property tax bills, and they're like, "Whoa, what is this?" They're having to pay, if they own chairs, desks, computers, any property at all in the business's name gets taxed at 13.5% of the value, and that value can never go to zero. It's the second highest in the country behind West Virginia. But if you're a big guy, if you're a big multinational corporation, which I'm glad they're here, the Volvos, the Boeings, the Michelins, whoever.
Sure.
The way to get around that is the State Department of Business Workforce or whoever, Economic Development, one of these state departments will buy the equipment. So, Michelin, I know this for a fact. My father-in-law used to work in Michelin in the upstate. The big machines they used to make those tires, there's a little plaque on all this, owned by the state of South Carolina.
Right.
And Michelin will lease those for a very nominal fee per year, rather than pay those taxes after buying those big machines. So there's, if you have a big influence in the state house, you can get around the taxes. And I don't want to raise taxes on the big corporations. That's what a lot of people hear when this comes up. We need to lower taxes for everybody. Those personal business property taxes, that stifles small businesses who actually employ most of the people in South Carolina. So if we want to look like a pay raise for most people who work for small businesses, how do we do that? Well, the easy way to do that is cut this personal business property tax.
And how much would that bring back to the House of District 117 in your mind?
It is uncapped. We have a lot of small businesses in the district. We don't have a lot of big businesses.
Okay.
We got small restaurants, a couple of fast food places,
Right.
home businesses.
Right.
For 117 specifically, it could be a huge boom, and people would have to stop looking over their shoulder for do I need to report this? If I don't report this, they're going to come and get me, because that's a concern for people that own these small businesses. It would just make things a lot simpler and easier and save a lot of money.
And let me get over to some developing news. Obviously, the big talk around Columbia is about the heartbeat bill. And I know that someone actually sent this to you on your Facebook page. You basically say, hey, important information. It says this, quote, every South Carolina pastor, please tell your congregation Sunday the call their state senator to vote for the heartbeat bill. Don't take excuses. In love and truth, let them know that their babies in the womb is who we will fight for. What excuses are people making right now, particularly lawmakers, when it comes to the heartbeat bill in your mind?
Well, there was an article came out earlier this week from Senator Massey. I think Senator Massey's on board with this bill. I don't question that at all. But he just stated the fact that he doesn't think they have the votes. He's the majority leader.
Yeah, he said it in the state newspaper.
Yeah. That they have the votes to pass it on the floor, which is disheartening. So that's kind of where that came from. That call, that was a pastor friend of mine up in Rock Hill.
Right.
Pastors should be leading on this. From a political standpoint, our first right in whether it's Declaration of Independence, the Carolina colony, way back, this is in the 1650s, 60s. Before we even got here, the charter for the Carolina colony was written by John Locke. It was Anthony Ashley Cooper's secretary, right before John Locke was famous. He wrote in the charter that the people who lived here would have the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of property. The right to life is number one. Same thing with the Declaration of Independence. So if we don't have the right to be left alive, to not be killed before we're born, then that kind of squashes all the other rights. You can't have rights if you're dead. So that's why, to me, that's a preeminent thing, even outside of the biblical reasons why. Just from a political, logical reason. You can't have a right to assemble, right to free speech, right to pursuit of happiness if you're not alive, if you're killed in the womb. So that's something I hope that our senators will get the word on. Going back 30 years, a lot of state senators that are still in office were in office 34 years ago. They were not the current party that they are today. most of those guys tend to not vote for pro-life bills. You know, Senator Leatherman and a few others from around the state. So hopefully God will touch them and change their mind on this, or they'll listen to their constituents who hopefully will call them and change their mind on this. But even if it doesn't have the votes, I hope it still comes up, because I would like to know, just as a citizen of South Carolina, I would like to know where our Senate stands on this bill. Even if it fails, it would be a good measure, really the best measure, for all of us to understand who's actually in favor of life and who's not.
What do you listen to the constituents about when it comes to this particular bill?
Everybody I've talked to in my district, and I haven't gone door to door yet, we're not there yet in the cycle, has been in favor of it. It's very similar to those bills that passed in Georgia and Louisiana.
Right.
It's certainly going to get a court challenge. However, especially with the recent appointments to the Supreme Court, I think it has a good chance of withstanding that trial, withstanding a Supreme Court challenge and winning.
Right. Let me get back to your obviously campaign, and I want to go back to your Facebook page again from September 24th. And obviously, you said this: "I want to protect the things that matter to you, your family, neighbors, and friends." What are those things that you want to protect right now in House District 117?
So what we were just talking about, the right to life is a big one. The government's job, constitutionally, in the South Carolina Constitution, U.S. Constitution, and then I think from a biblical standpoint, is to enact justice, to protect life and property. The idea of private property is what has helped build this country. The fact that people have a right to live, to be lived unmolested by the government and governmental structures, in order to pursue that idea of pursuing happiness. That's what government should be protecting. How do we do that? We do that by cutting government regulations, cutting government interference in our pocketbooks, with taxes like we've been talking about.
Right.
People, let's get back to that idea. Individuals, families know how to spend their money better than the government does. That's a primary piece of my philosophy. And we see that throughout history. Government's not good at spending money. Well, I take that back. Government's really, really, really good at spending money, especially when they don't have it. And they get away with it.
As a matter of fact, you said this too, quote, "I want to make government small, make it lean, and make it efficient." What's your definition of a small government?
So before, go back a couple hundred years. Now, I'm not saying everything was great a couple hundred years, but the idea of the founders came out of this idea, John Locke's second treatise on government, Rousseau, the Enlightenment guys, those philosophers. The idea was that the government be small enough that you don't know who the president is. And throughout most of American history, if you just went out down the street to, John Smith the plumber, or Fred the farmer, whoever, and asked him, "Hey, who's the president?" They probably wouldn't know, because it didn't matter. Now, obviously, things have changed with 24/7 media and everything else, Facebook and internet. And that's in many ways a good thing. But ideally, a government small enough that pretty much all it does is protect our property and protect our lives from crime, from foreign interference. That's really what the founders intended, I think, because that's what they did.
And let me go back to the top of your Facebook post, because you said this quote: "Whether it was helping fight off local tax hikes or holding corrupt legislators accountable, my faith in biblical principles has been my guiding compass in everything I do." Right? Holding corrupt legislators accountable and fighting off local tax hikes. How do you push back on the status quo?
Well, there's a couple different ways. One may go with that. People really don't pay a whole lot of attention. This is what I've learned about local politics. National and federal politics gets covered a whole heck of a lot more, whether it's on nightly news or whatever, than local stuff. So one is to be an outlet for information. I want to hold town hall meetings on a regular basis all around the district. Some friends of mine in the upstate who are state legislators have been very successful in this. They hold when they're in session, I think it's once a month. they'll have a town hall, announce it here, and tell everybody, here's what's going on. Sometimes they'll have ice cream or some kind of snack or something.
Right.
And incentivize. I want people to come to hear about what's happening. So that's one of the primary reasons there is let people know. One of the other ways is how you vote. I'm going to look at every bill that comes to in front of me, on my desk, and actually read it. Maybe you probably would be surprised, but a lot of people would be surprised. A lot of these bills, especially the resolutions and stuff, that come through. So somebody will say, "Hey, will you co-sponsor this?" And they'll just read the top of it and go, "Yeah, sure," and pass on. They don't necessarily read the whole thing because they're long bills written by lawyers, and a lot of folks don't even want to or don't have the time or whatever, make some kind of excuse. I'm going to read the bills that come from me, and if it doesn't pass muster from a constitutional or biblical standpoint of what government's supposed to do, I'm not going to vote for it.
And you also said this on December 27th, quote, "Are you tired of radical socialists? I am, and I need your help, that is, to defeat one right here in the Low Country." Who are the radical socialists here in the Low Country?
The current incumbent, she's been pretty proud of it, so I don't think I'm not name calling. She's very open about being a Democratic socialist, is the way she phrases it. She had her campaign kickoff at Bernie Sanders headquarters on Rivers Avenue a couple weeks ago. So it's not like she's a closet socialist or something. This is the policies that she's espousing. What Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, all these big name AOC socialists, what they're calling for, we have seen for the last 100 years, over and over and over again, be absolutely disastrous everywhere it's been implemented. I think the number's well over 100 million people in the 20th century died from socialist communist regimes, all the way from the Soviets to Cambodia to Cuba to Venezuela most recently. Angola, DRC, you name it. Anywhere socialism goes, death follows, misery follows. Even in Europe, Sweden is not a socialist country. Denmark is not a socialist country, despite the fact that Bernie Sanders refers to it as, we have the same policies as Sweden. Denmark will be great. The Prime Minister of Denmark about 2 years ago said at I think it was at Harvard, one of the Ivy League schools, in a speech, "We're not socialist. We're a capitalist system with a lot of social safety net," and I don't think it's a good idea. But when you look at the values that they have there, they're different societies than we have. And if you look at the income mobility in places that establish even this democratic socialism, these big welfare societies, whether the UK, Sweden, Denmark, their income mobility is awful. Now, the inequality, there's not a huge gap between the super rich there and everyday people, but you're stuck. If you're stuck at that lower level, because there's so much government interference in the market, in people's lives, the taxes are so high, it's very, very hard to get a leg up in those kind of societies. So if you want placid mediocrity, I guess that's fine if that's what people want to go for. And I'm sure that they could try to move to the places that have that. That's not what I think South Carolina and the United States in general was built on. The reason we've come up with airplanes, spaceships, the internet, when all of this was driven by an idea of opportunity. Like, you can do this as an individual, as a community. Like, we can do stuff. And the idea there of liberty is dangerous. It's inherent. If you're going to have opportunity, there's a chance you're going to fall on. You're going to bust your butt, and it's going to hurt. But that's the risk of that kind of food.
And you also said this too, but we need the resources to do it. And obviously talk about your fundraising.
Right.
What resources do you have now to push back on this?
We've had a pretty good fundraising. I've raised about double of what I did all of the last time I ran. Last time I ran the primary,
Right.
I'm more than double. I'm the only candidate. I'm on the Republican race right now. Hopefully it stays that way. We're one on the creek don't rise. It stays that way. So we've had a lot of support from a pretty broad spectrum of conservative party folks all over the area, all over the state. Really have been coming around me and encouraging me, giving support. Very thankful for that, and I think that's been one big encourager. Like, yeah, this was the right decision. Let's do this.
You talked obviously about your incumbent's policies. What other policies concern you right now?
So one of the bills she sponsored was to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Um, that won't work. Yeah, if we raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, what that does, what we've seen happen in places like Seattle, which did this, I think they raised theirs like more than $15 an hour within the city of Seattle. The folks on the lower end of the skilled labor market, so people with not a lot of specific skills, working in restaurants, those kind of things, part-time jobs, disappeared because the owners of those small businesses couldn't afford it. The big guys, Amazons, the Walmarts, those big companies, they can afford it. That's fine. They don't have a problem with it. They might give a little lip service, they don't like it's a bad idea. But they'll absorb the hit. It's the small businesses, which is what makes up most of my history, that get hounded with the $15 an hour minimum wage. Because if they want to hire a high school kid, I encourage my high school, I teach personal finance,
Right.
one of the subjects I teach. Right. I encourage them to go get a summer job. Well, if there's a 17-year-old kid with basically no skills other than reading, writing, arithmetic, it's going to be very hard to hire them for $15 an hour for any significant length of time. I mean, they might get to work 5 hours a week. So that's what's inherently the problem with artificially raising the minimum wage like that. The market will increase wages. We saw this in the mid-2000s, the big fracking boom in the Dakotas. There were signs, advertisements of Walmart's in North Dakota, starting pay $18 an hour to be a cashier at Walmart because there was a demand for it. The market will figure that out. When we place artificial restraints like the $15 minimum hour, I mean, what's the difference between $15 and $100 for minimum wage? Wouldn't that make us all richer? It's the same, by the same logic, $100 would be better than $15. But we all know that math don't work. You got to pay somebody $100 an hour, they can't run the business. So it's things like that. It's $15 minimum wage. Trying to think. She hasn't sponsored a whole lot of bills, but that was one of them. There's one about like protecting transgender rights in public schools specifically. I'm a conservatarian. That's what I would describe myself. Groups don't have rights, individuals have rights. And that's the way the Constitution explains it, that the Declaration of Independence is like that individuals have the right, like you and I have the right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, to assemble speech, not groups of people. So if we go that biblical mandated idea, that biblical idea that individuals are made in the image of God and have inherent value, then we don't need to give certain groups specific rights. That in itself is institutionalizing prejudice.
And let me go back to what you talked about, obviously, with the minimum wage. Where is the demand right now in House District 117?
Depends what kind of skills you have. We're hopefully going to be having more job opportunities at the aluminum plant, Central Aluminum.
Right.
They passed a referendum passed for the city of Goose Creek to create their own little electricity thing, to provide affordable electricity to Century. Century has said they're going to reopen one of their lines they had to shut down, and that's going to be 300 jobs in about a year that pay on average $90,000 a year. That's way more than $15 an hour. So this is pretty significant. It's just right there in the district for that. Broadly, I think we do things like get rid of those energy. The whole reason for that referendum was we only have 3 power companies that produce power in the whole state because it's illegal for somebody else to go in and set up a power company to produce power. If you're not Dominion, Duke, or Santee Cooper, which is state-owned, you can't produce power and sell it in the state of South Carolina. It's even highly restricted if you have solar panels, what you can do with it. You can't have those Tesla batteries that they're making.
Right.
You can't have those here. They're illegal. For you to have a battery to store power that you collect from the sun for your own house, you have to sell that power back to one of these 3, to the central grid, which is controlled by these 3. That's crazy. Texas did away with this, and they're doing great. They're paying a fraction of what we do for electricity because there's a market there. You choice and where you buy it from. It forces competition. It creates jobs and it lowers prices.
And let me get back to the obviously her plan as far as the law for transgender rights. You told me about the one that you disagree with her about. But what laws would you propose to protect transgender folks in House District 117?
Like I said, individuals have rights. So creating laws to specifically protect a certain group of people is unnecessary and counterproductive. If someone feels like their rights have been violated, we have a court system to figure that out. And if you want to hire an attorney, you can do that. There are plenty of organizations out there, nonprofits, who can supply that kind of thing. And if you think someone or someone, some organization, some company, whoever has violated your rights, then you can take it to the courts. That's what the courts are for, and the courts have been there. This idea of court-based legal rulings all the way since England. Common law is the idea of this, English common law. That's how we establish precedents, and that's how that kind of thing has come about historically. What legislators do, when legislators want to write these kind of bills, it's virtue signaling. I mean, they want to show that they're in with whatever the current fad is, the current hip thing is. We're going to protect these people. We're going to do whatever it is, rather than look how has it been best done before? What have been the problems with it before, and how can we address those problems? From a court level, if people aren't happy with how the courts are run, there's a reason for that. We have a weird way to select judges. So I think that's a much more adequate and useful way to fix that. If people feel like their rights have been violated, then they go before a judge, and they think the judge maybe isn't qualified after the fact. There's a good chance the judge isn't qualified, because there's very little qualifications you have to have for being a magistrate judge, other than getting to the legislature, because the legislature chooses them. There's not a lot of oversight. But I worked at the State House briefly with the Baptist Convention.
Right.
I walked in through the parking lot one day, and I saw there was this a line of very well-dressed, professional-looking people with little handouts. And I asked a friend of mine, "What is this?" And he said, "Oh, those are people running for the judgeship. They want to be at the bench somewhere, so they can't politic in the actual State House.
Right.
They can in
Right.
the parking lot.
Right.
So they're here, please vote for me. Please vote for me." Walking in there, that's weird. I think one of the few things the federal government gets right is how they pick judges. The executive, in that case the president, in our case the governor, should nominate them. It goes before the legislature, the Senate, to approve or disapprove. Today we have this weird judicial selection committee, which qualifies or disqualifies people at their leisure. A lot of times it's former legislators, it's family members of legislators, and they said, they pick one or two, sometimes just one qualified candidate out of dozens that apply, and that gets sent to the House for approval. And there's no other options. So it's a weird way to do it. I don't like how it's set up. It has kind of weird background in how that was set up back in the 1895 Constitution we have. It's an inherently racist constitution, and it's set up to keep landed white gentry back then in power. That's why the governor is so weak. That's why there's all these weird structures like how judges get picked to prevent the white landed gentry from losing power. So I think those are the kind of things structurally when you look at how do we fix this. Maybe we follow the federal model on how we pick judges. I think that would solve more problems than trying to protect a specific group of people and give them more rights than others. Because that's, again, biblically, if we're all created equal, we should all have equal rights, not group rights.
Did the state of South Carolina get it right when it comes to transgender rights?
What do you mean?
Did they get it right, or is it something that needs to be fixed in your mind, or is it?
No, I don't think. Like I said, I don't think individuals have rights, not groups. So we don't need to say people with blue eyes. I mean, think about it. Change transgender to some other group of people. Blue-eyed people shouldn't get discriminated against. Okay, sure. I think that's a random example. But I think most people would say, yeah, that's true. Blue-eyed people should be discriminated against for whatever, by the government. put a group of people in there that matter. The law should say, the law says this already, that all of us individually have the right to not be killed, the right for our property not to be taken. These lists of rights that we all have individually exist. That's why we already have it. If people are unhappy with the way things are happening, I would argue it's not a problem with who has what rights. Because on paper, in the law, we all have the same rights. It's more likely a problem with the structure and how those rights are being defended, whether it's in the courts or in the legislature.
Is the South Carolina way structure the best way to go when it comes to transgender? Okay.
No, I mean, with anything. I mean, like I was saying, with how the judges are selected, we're the only state that does it that way. And it's not being unique is good sometimes. In this case, I don't think it's a good thing. And there's a push. I mean, there's several legislators who have brought legislation to fix this. It always hasn't gone anywhere because it takes time. And I'm not going up there. My mentality when assuming I win, God willing, is not going to be, kick the door in. Like, all right, I'm here. Let's fix everything. That'd be great if it worked that way. But it doesn't, and I realize that. It's very much about building relationships with people that are there. Hopefully, identifying people that are problematic and either change their mind or change who's in the seat.
Now, you talked earlier about those nonprofits that really helps the transgender community. Which one of those ones would you work with to better the rights for transgender genders in South Carolina?
What do you mean?
Those nonprofit organizations that support transgender communities. If you were elected to office today, which one of those particular organizations you would partner with or support to make certain that transgender rights are honored in South Carolina?
I don't know any off the top of my head.
Okay.
My hope is, again, I don't want to categorize people.
Okay.
People are people. Their individuals' rights should be protected. However they label themselves. On the other side of that, people should be able to force their labels on others. In the same way, because we all have the same rights to free speech, to freedom of assembly, you name it, all this stuff. If organizations exist, that's great for them if that's what they want to do. It's probably not something that I would put a whole lot of my focus into. I'm more focused on protecting individual rights, families, income, opportunities to better their families, better their children, better themselves, rather than put people in groups.
Now, what opportunities would you support for the transgender community versus the other things that you're against?
Well, like I said, it's individuals, not groups, not labels, whoever.
Sure.
In James, in the book of James,
Right.
James tells the church in Jerusalem, don't show favoritism. Whether they're rich or poor, specifically talking in their case, there was favoritism being shown to the rich people who were in the church. They come in, they had gold rings on their hands, and they had fine clothes. They're like, oh, you sit here in a good seat, and everybody else can sit wherever. So it was telling them, don't show partiality, is the direct translation there. So, particularly from a governmental perspective, the government shouldn't show partiality because you're part of one group or another. Whether you're rich or poor, whether you're, you name it, whatever group it is. Whatever label people label themselves. It's an equal opportunity for the law, is the idea. And people should be judged by their merits and their choices, what they choose to do with their lives, rather than whatever label they give them. People label them. Coming up on MLK Day, 20th. That's what Martin Luther King espoused that same thing. Judge people by the content of their character, not by their color, skin, or whatever people label them as. So that's I would look at it as my job as a legislator is to enact laws that provide equal opportunity for people. In general, that's going to mean getting the government out of the way of their pursuit of property, their pursuit of happiness, their pursuit to live freely in a place they want to live.
And if you were to be elected legislator, what what law would you enact that is on day one?
If I could like enact anything, like rub a lamp in it. Oh man, I never thought about that. I think the income tax honestly would be a good thing.
Okay.
And I say that because it's particularly with that low threshold, that $14,000. Everybody gets hit with this, and I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it would be the personal income tax, would it be the personal business property tax.
Okay.
One would be an immediate thing, like people would immediately feel the benefits of not having to pay that, even on the lower end of the economic spectrum. And I mean, the first year I was out of college,
Right.
I made $16,000, I think that year, $16,000 or $17,000. So I've been poor and broke. I've been there. And it didn't get. I worked for Congressman Sanford after that. I know he does not pay well, which as a taxpayer I appreciate it. As an employee, it's tough. But even on the lower end of the socioeconomic kind of spectrum, cutting the income tax or eliminating the income tax would be a big deal and save a lot of people money. The personal business property tax, that would be beneficial in the long run because it would allow those same kind of folks, people that have get a dream in their head. I want to open my own store. I want to open this business. But when they start running the numbers and they start figuring out if I buy this equipment to do this, if I don't make a certain amount of money, I'm not going to be able to pay this tax. If I don't pay this tax, they're going to come and take my stuff. So it just puts an extra burden on people who want to go and make themselves, do better for themselves and their family. And that's what I want government to get out of the way of. Whether a lot of this stuff was probably put in place by people who meant to do good. Whether the personal business property tax, that's in the state constitution. One of many things in the state constitution needs to be changed. And a group of legislators actually put that out there last year.
Right.
I think it was a bunch of freshman legislators said, "Hey, let's maybe rethink this constitution we have from 1895." So that would be one good thing to change too. I think that would help a lot of small business owners, a lot of entrepreneurs. That's the engine of economic growth, and not just economic growth, of just making people's lives better. And it's when you are as an individual can accomplish something like that. You know this. You built this, man, and you know this firsthand. Even if you're not making a ton of money doing it, you accomplished something.
Working on behalf of God.
Exactly. My grandpa, both my grandfathers, thank the Lord, are still alive. It's my dad's dad, he'll be in his late 70s. He gets up 3 or 4 days a week at 3:30 in the morning. He goes to his post offices. He comes home, takes a nap, and goes and cuts people's grass, and he's retired. But not really. He just never stops. Because I always heard this growing up, God's through with you, he'll kill you. so don't give up. I mean, there's stuff to do. And because we're built, work is not a bad thing. In Genesis, God creates work as a good thing. Before sin enters the world, God gives Adam a job to take care of the garden and the animals. So work is not a bad thing. Because sin came in, it's become difficult. God tells Adam, all right, work's going to be hard now. It's going to be tough to get this plants to grow, and the animals are going to rebel against you. But initially, work is a good thing. We like to make stuff. That's why kids like Legos. That's why I like when I was a kid, I love Legos. You get to build stuff. You get to accomplish things.
Right.
Minecraft. Kids love Minecraft.
They do.
Because you can build things. You can accomplish stuff. So it's not just an economic thing. Yeah, I want people to be able to do the things they want to do. But beyond just making money, it establishes something internally in people, in all of us, individuals and families and communities, when we start building things, and not from a prideful perspective. God made us creative. He made us in his likeness. God made stuff. I mean, he makes stuff today. It's in our mother's wombs. It's another reason the heartbeat is a big deal.
Okay.
Because God's a creator, and we're in his likeness. We like to create things, to work, and to make stuff. And I want people to have the freedom, the actual freedom to be able to do that.
To be continued with this discussion, well, Jordan Pace. Thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close Ups.
Thanks for having me back.
You're welcome anytime. Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.